Good afternoon or good evening. I thought instead of doing a live from my house, I would do a live from outside. And instead of doing a live, I thought perhaps I should just pre-record it because it's just that much easier. Today I want to talk to you about our conscience. It is a basket of truth as we know it. My mom, she was a smart girl. She taught us and she gauged us and she taught us how to live by our conscience, and she controlled us by our conscience. And I'm here to tell you that it was a very effective way. Now, most people would say that the truth will set you free, and I can agree with that if it is your own truth and it is your own truth that you're telling. I can also disagree with that statement by saying that other people's truth is a burden. And I want you to just think about that for a few minutes while I continue. Our conscience is the basket of truth. We are the only ones that know the true meaning behind what it is that we've done. In many cases, we're the only ones that know what we've done. And everything's okay until someone knows. And prior to that, our conscience is our only guide. So I want to talk to you a little bit about right, wrong, and honesty. You see, I want to refer you to a movie called the Dorian Gray, the portrait of Dorian Gray. Now, it was done in 1955 and again in 1975. Dorian Gray was a good-looking Englishman who had some really badness in him, some real badness in him. And instead of it showing on his face and collecting in his person, all the bad that he did in the world would show up on a self-portrait that he had done many years ago. Once in a while, he would go up to the attic and take a look at that self-portrait. And although his face didn't change from all the years of abuse and the bad things that he was doing to people, the portrait did. Now, it's explained to my son some years ago that everything you do shows up in your face. People that have gone to war and seen unspeakable atrocities, you can see that in their eyes. People that have done bad things to other people, it wears on them, and you can see that in their aura. So your conscience is part of the inner you, and it's the only guide that you really have to make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time to the right people. Now, some people would say that absolution will set you free, that if you confess your sins, that you will be okay, but I don't believe that. I believe there has to be some decent penance for things that we do to other people. Lots of people out there are leading double lives. They're doing things that nobody else knows about, and they have secrets, and they all tell. They all tell on their face. They all show. Even the prettiest of men and women, especially women, it doesn't go. Even the prettiest of men and women, it shows. Their face, no matter how pretty it is, the way they treat other people and the things that they do to other people in their past, all shows up on their face, in their aura, in their personality. So you can't really do anything and get away with it as long as your conscience is your guide. And for 99 times out of 100, for most of those people out here, you and I, our conscience is our truth. The 1% of people that don't believe that they have to be honest, that can separate themselves from a situation, they're psychopaths. And there's one in every 100. Or they're narcissists, and that's one in every 100 as well. So 2 people out of every 100 people are either sociopaths, psychopaths, or narcissists. And they can seem to detract or separate themselves from their deeds. But for the rest of us, we're all wearing it. So remember that next time you go to do something that you know is wrong. You may get away with it, maybe nobody else knows, but eventually it's going to wear on your conscience, and you're going to have to do something about it. So what are we going to do about it? Well, my idea is very simple. First off, I think we have to apologize. We have to make some kind of penance. We have to do something to help the situation that we've created. We have to undo the wrong we did, or we have to somehow make up for it in another way. Sometimes people call that paying it forward. Something you've done to somebody else, all of a sudden now you're trying to do something good for somebody else to make up for it. Now, that's not the be-all and end-all. It's not the best way to approach it. It is perhaps the only practical way to approach it, because once you've done something, it's done. Like I said, you can go about your life thinking that nobody knows and that's okay, but it'll show on your face. It'll wear on you. people will be able to tell directly or indirectly sometime later on what kind of person you are based on looking at your face. They can look in your eyes and they can see the hurt and they can see the pain and they can see the guilt. So absolution is perhaps not the best way to go. It's, the whole idea of repenting for your sins before you die and absolving yourself of that doesn't work for me. I don't think it's that simple. I think we really have to take stock of what it is that we've done. We have to own it, and we have to do something about it while we're capable of doing so. Apologizing is only the first step. Beyond that, what's most important is that the person or persons that you've had done something to, they feel better, and they know that you're sorry for it. It's the psychopaths and the sociopaths and the narcissists out there that don't believe that they really have done anything wrong, and they are probably beyond hope. But the rest of us, we all have a way of dealing with our wrong. And you know something, I've been on both sides of my conscience at many times in my life. I know when I've done something wrong. My mom raised me with a conscience. It was her guide. It was my guide now. So there's no getting away from it. You may be the only person that knows what you did, but you know. And that is going to damage you. And I can tell you from being on both sides of my conscience that damage lasts a lifetime, especially if you're not able to do anything about it. So my best advice to you today is, if you've hurt somebody or done something that you know is wrong, then try to make up for it. Try to pay a penance that actually matters. Try to do something to absolve yourself the best way you can and come to terms with what it is that you've done. Now, I know the pandemic has led a lot of people into their heads, and there's a lot of people out there that are leading 2 lives, sometimes 3 lives. And, it's because they're not satisfied in their first life that they need a second. And I've been on that side of the fence. I can confess that I have been on that side of the fence. But I handle it wrong, and I'm older now, and I realize how badly I handle it. So my call to you is that if you're living some kind of second life, or you're doing something wrong and you know it's wrong, first off, stop it. Secondly, admit it. Own it. Thirdly, apologize for it. Fourth, try to make up for it. And then fifth, you'll probably sleep a whole lot better. This is Dinner with Neil. It's Sunday at 6 o'clock. It is not live. I am on location at Cedar Bay Beach. I love this beach. I have always loved this beach. It's been tainted in my memory somewhat, but it's still a beautiful place. And I really, truly enjoy being here. I thought it would be a good spot to do my live, not so live from today. So conscience, it serves us, but it also works against us. Let your conscience be your guide. Truth shall set you free if you speak of it yourself, but somebody else's truth usually is a burden. So be careful of how many of those you take on and how many of those you discover, because it's not fun knowing the truth. I'm an empath, and I know I'm a truth seeker, and I know that I demand the truth, but in a lot of cases we don't get it. Sometimes later on we find out, and that damages us. Sometimes it damages us more than the person who's perpetrated the problem, or perpetrated the evil or offense. So be careful of how many truths you take on of somebody else's, because it's not your burden to bear, and believe me, it is a burden to bear. So thank you very much for listening to me tonight. I hope that you can go on today and undo the things that you know you've done wrong, and perhaps maybe even pay it forward by doing something nice for somebody else and pay for it that way. So I want to thank you very much for being here. Cedar Bay Beach in Port Colborne. We're in lockdown and there's nobody here. I had to hide my bike from the streets so nobody knew I was here. But I'm happy to be here. I'm going to do a few more things yet. I see some people enjoying the beach. I see some children running around with sand in their toes. This is what we all need. We all need a little bit of refreshing entertainment and some fresh air. And we all need to show a little bit more love to one another out there. And if you're not showing love to people, then perhaps it's time to take a stand, take a break, and to realize that everybody needs a little love. This is Sunday Night Dinner with Neil. I appreciate you for being here. I love you all for being here. And I hope you join me next week. Next week, the subject is going to be, justification. because for everything that we do, we seem to be able to justify it. And justification doesn't always mean that it's a good thing. It just means that that's the way that we deal with what it is that we're doing. And if we're doing something wrong, and we know it's wrong, we tend to try to justify that somehow. And that is the worst way to your conscience. So remember Dorian Gray. Everything he did to people would show up on the picture. It didn't show up on his face. Every once in a while, he would go up to the attic and take a look, and the picture got uglier and uglier and uglier. And then he would go on and do his thing, and hurt people, and steal, and take, and then go back and look at the picture, and it got even worse. Just remember that. It shows up on your psyche, it shows up in your face, it shows up in your aura. It shows up everywhere. You may think you got away with it, but it's only temporary. You got to live with yourself, and that's the toughest person to live with. And I know that I always govern and gauge people by truth. There's a lot of people that don't talk to me anymore because I'm too honest, and I have shown them truth in themselves that they're not ready to accept. So I've separated myself from a lot of people because I have demand truth, and when I find truth, I let people know what the truth really is, and most of them can't handle it. You remember a few good men? You can't handle the truth. Well, it's very true. And if you're going to do the work and be a better person, and you're going to try and make the world a better place, then the first place you start with is the truth. Thanks for being here. I'm Neil Tilt. I'll see you next Sunday for Justification. Justification. It's going to be a wild one. I might do that one live. You take care.